I've been hesitating to publish this video for a week now, but this piece of news made me change my mind. The catastrophe is coming very soon, I think, and I'd like you to be aware of it. In this video, I'll be discussing why you should run away from iota in the meantime. Before I start, I'd like to declare that iota is my favorite coin as a technology. I personally believe that iota will dominate in the future. The problem I'm going to discuss with iota is not about iota's tech, but about iota as an investment. This is because most of the people who invest in iota think of it as a long-term investment, and I think they're right. iota is awesome, and having it as a long-term investment is the right plan, except that there is a problem that I'll be discussing in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let's see if I'm right about this. And again, as usual, I'd like to emphasize that this is not financial advice. This is my view on the current messy situation of iota. Having said that, let's discuss the problem with iota. In fact, the problem can be summarized in one word: Bitfinex. Now, for you who don't know what I'm talking about, Bitfinex is the only exchange that trades iota. Apart from the fact that Bitfinex was hacked and that it's having constant banking problems, there's nothing wrong with Bitfinex practices except for their very weird currency called TETHER. If you haven't heard of it before, TETHER, let me shed some light on it. TETHER basically is a currency that is pegged to some real fiat currency. It's a cryptocurrency, so it's nothing real. It's just like Bitcoin or, well, Ethereum or any of these. But it has the same value. Every one token of it has the same value as a US dollar. For example, USD is US dollar, while USDT is tether of the US dollar. The deal is simple. You pay $1 US and Bitfinex gives you one token that is supposedly equivalent to that US dollar in value. This sounds like a sweet deal to digitize money, but analyzing the current setting shows how dreadful it is. To make an analogy that illustrates the problem, imagine you give me $1 US and in return I take a post-it note and write on it 1 USD. You take this note and start using it as a new fiat currency with a value of $1 US. You go to a shop and use this note to buy goods and services. If the shop accepts this note, he would accept it knowing that he'd eventually be able to get his quote-unquote real money anytime from me. But what I didn't tell you is that I reserve the right to refuse to exchange this note for money. Meaning, if things go bad, you can't get your money back even through the legal system, and this is basically what Bitfinex does. You can verify this on their Tether update page. Bitfinex justifies this by saying that they want to prevent dealing with US dollars in sanctioned countries. This sounds alright, except that any legal system will not blame them for not accepting to exchange Tether with people from sanctioned countries, because then they would be breaking the law. The way I see it, they're using this as an excuse to protect themselves when they declare bankruptcy or run away with the money. This is basically problem number one. To explain problem number two, let's look at the supply of Tether through the same analogy. I give you the post-it notes that you start exchanging for goods and services. The correct setting here is that there is a record for every note I create, and assuming forgery is out of the question, for every note there should be $1 US in reserve. On one hand, this is not the case for Tether, or it was until March 2017. To verify this, just go to their Tether update page. The most important part of that Tether update page is the part talking about auditors. The last audit Tether had was on March 31st, 2017, with an amount of about 50 million USD in reserve. This also was the amount of circulating supply of Tether back then, which we can verify in coinmarketcap.com. Now this is fine. The problem starts with the fact that no more audits were done since then. Quoting from their page, as we are no longer banking in Taiwan, and given that we are achieving substantial scale, we have engaged Friedman LLP in New York to perform comprehensive balance sheet audits on a quarterly basis, going back to December 31st, 2016. We will share those results with you as they become available in the coming weeks or months. End quote. Since then, the amount of Tether issued was increased tenfold. Yes, you heard that right, tenfold. Not only that, but also another 50 million Tether were issued on November 10, 2017, which is very recent. Since the issuing of all this Tether, no audits were done. No one has any idea how much Bitfinex has in its reserve to support Tether. This is basically problem number 2. To illustrate the size of this problem, and going back to my analogy with the notes I'm distributing to people, if I'd like to become rich, all I have to do is create more notes and stop making audits. Now imagine what's going to happen if the United States prints more and more US dollars. Actually, we don't have to imagine, we just have to look at live examples where ignorant leaders did exactly that. In Zimbabwe, for example, this move was done by their dictator starting in the 1990s. His country was having money problems, so he decided to print more money. And since fiat money doesn't have any intrinsic value, the value of this currency dropped due to inflation with a rate reaching 80 trillion%. Now for those who are not familiar with inflation, I like the saying that explains this relation very simply. If money grew on trees, it would be as valuable as leaves. The same applies to crypto actually. If crypto was available with a push of a button, it would have no value. Scarcity is what gives it value. Because only a few people have it and it cannot be copied, that's why it gained value. Now going back to Tether and comparing, the problem is that Bitfinex has successfully created a system where they can print as much money as they want with exactly zero inflation. Can you imagine how dangerous this is? This is the perfect system to become rich. If I were them and had bad intentions, all I had to do is create lots of Tether, postpone auditing. Oh, wait, this is exactly what's happening now. Then I can buy lots of other cryptos, hide them, and claim that someone hacked me and stole all my money. How about this plan? Sounds extreme, right? But today I woke up and saw the news that 30 million Tether were stolen. And that's when I decided that this video must be made as soon as possible. Remember that the main merit of cryptocurrency is that it's a trustless system. I don't need to trust you with a Bitcoin transaction. The Bitcoin protocol guarantees the safety of the transaction. This is why it's valuable, actually. But what's happening now is quite the opposite, where every Tether holder basically trusts Bitfinex blindly, which issues tons of Tether with no audits since 7 months. And since then, they increased the supply of Tether by over tenfold. This is crazy. At this point, you might be wondering, what does this have to do with iota? The answer is simple, and I'll base this on history. Yes, you guessed that right, I'm talking about Mt. Gox, or Mt. Gox as people called it. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Mt. Gox is an exchange that went bankrupt. Mt. Gox was handling about 70% of Bitcoin trades around the world. After declaring bankruptcy, the price of Bitcoin went down by about 70% and only recovered after 3 years in 2017. Now with the Mt. Gox example, I'm discussing an exchange that was handling 70% of a currency's trades. Now imagine the situation with Bitfinex handling all iota trades and being this questionable with their money practices. If Bitfinex goes down, it's going to be very, very ugly. The price of all cryptos will be hit, but not by much. But the price of iota will take the hardest hit and probably go to zero. I know people might say I'm spraying FUD, but I don't care. The reason for making this video is simply that such an investment is dangerous. I'm a simple software dev who makes a few thousand euros per month, and I buy crypto because I believe it's the future. And I also believe that many people are just like me. They're simple people, they are not millionaires. I bought iota, and I kept it for a while, and I can say it's my favorite crypto as a tech. But I'm not going to keep it and just wait for Bitfinex to go down. If you're not a millionaire, I think it's reasonable that you consider the situation with iota, at least until it is available in a few exchanges and becomes safe. Now coming to my plan to evade this messy situation. Recently, I sold all my iota with a loss of 10% after it peaked after the cancellation of the Segwit 2x hard fork. There are two possible futures for Bitfinex. Either it will become honest and show us that it really has $550 million in reserve, or it'll keep stalling until it collapses. When it collapses, the price of iota will drop very significantly, and there will be a big struggle to put it in some other exchanges. Now that will be the right time to buy iota. I personally believe the price will drop to a cent per iota. Now for those who plan to hold iota for a longer time and not listen to me, there's a scenario where you'll make big bucks. And the scenario is basically if iota gets sold on some other exchanges before Bitfinex falls. I think the right move for you guys now is to exert some pressure on the iota devs to make it appear on some other exchanges. In that case, iota will skyrocket. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. And if you don't like what I said, please comment and tell me why you think I'm wrong.